Welcome back to the Faces of Tomorrow podcast. Today, I'm joined with Angeliki, a psychology student at Mcgill University. She came to me wanting to share her story about having had an eating disorder and how it impacted her life to wanting to help others. Her focus has been to rediscover a new way of eating and to have a healthy relationship with exercise. She's also focused on healthy habits that she can implement in her life and help others who are in a similar situation to her. So, welcome, Angie. Thank you so much for coming today.
Thanks for having me.
Anytime. Thank you so much for reaching out and wanting to share your story because I'm really interested to learn more, and I'm sure many people can definitely benefit from hearing and learning about it. So,
Yeah.
to start off, tell me a bit about your background. So, obviously, yes, you're in psychology right now, but tell me a bit more about your life, up until now. How did you get here? Your path,
Yeah.
everything.
Well, I guess a good place to start is just after high school. So, I wasn't sure exactly what I wanted to do, but I wanted to keep my doors as open as possible, and my parents encouraged me to do that. So, I went to John Abbott, CEGEP, um, in commerce. So, I was doing math and business courses because I wanted to, my plan was to go into business in the future. So I did that for 2 years and I finished in 2 years. And I didn't find myself really passionate about any kind of business courses. I was always good at math and I had the math brains, but accounting and economics, those were just things that were not at my alley and I didn't feel passionate about. But the two classes that I loved more than any other classes at Abbott were my psychology classes. So I took intro to psych and then I took social psych. And on top of that, throughout the end of high school and my CGIP experiences was the peak of my mental health and eating disorder issues. So I was actually seeing a therapist. So and on top of learning about psychology in school, and I was having the experience with an actual clinical therapist, and it helped me so much. And it is that, the mix of those things is what made me feel like I really wanted to go into psychology and do help people like my therapist was helping me. And so yeah, I talked to my parents. I was like, I really want to do psychology. I know I have a good feeling about this. This is my passion. I know you can't really do anything with a bachelor in psych like you can do with a bachelor in accounting or something like that, but it opens your doors to go for further studies. After psychology you could do so much. You can do human relations, you can do counseling, you can do like literally anything. So but my goal was to become a clinical therapist because I want to have that one-on-one experience with people. Specialize in eating disorders because that was my personal experience. So yeah, I applied to McGill in psychology and I got in, and I just finished my first year in psychology, and it was obviously weird because it's been online, so it's
For
it,
sure.
yeah, it's weird, but I'm gonna apply into honors psych too, because if I want to be a therapist, I'm gonna have to get my PhD, and I'm gonna have to do everything I could to get there. It's gonna be a long process, but I think it's gonna be a worth it process. So yeah,
That's no, for sure.
yeah,
That sounds so cool. Honestly, I love that because I think I remember we had spoken a while ago, and I think you told me you were in commerce. So I didn't realize you had made the switch into more the psych
yeah,
route. But I think that's
for sure.
it's super cool. But I didn't realize you have to get a PhD to be a clinical therapist.
Yeah.
You can't just do a master's. You have to do a PhD.
You have to do a PhD if you want to be a clinical therapist, but
Okay.
there's other things that you can do within psychology that you don't need a master's for. For example, my sister was in education in her bachelor's, and then now she's in educational psychology for her
Oh, okay.
master's, and she can work in resources, do that kind of thing. So with the master's, I can become a guidance counselor at a high school or something like that. So I can do that if I wanted to, which is something I'm also considering because a PhD is a really long term commitment.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, and I would anything that I can be one on one with people, and I've always been I always love communicating with people and hearing. I'm a good listener and I really want to hear everybody's stories, and I love helping people in any way I can. There's nothing that brings me more joy. So yeah, that's the goal for now. Yeah.
No,
I
I
know
love
it's so
that.
different. It's so different than commerce though. I was in like business
It
class.
is very different, but I think it's like nice because like you're saying, it's like you're really getting to know someone's like true story and like probably things that they don't share with most people. You get the privilege to help that person in their life, no matter how big
Yeah.
or small that impact may be. And I
Mhm.
think that alone is like such a rewarding feeling. Like
It
I
is.
would love like not even necessarily in a psychology perspective, but in other ways to help people change certain paths in life or just like to help someone with their life in whichever domain it may be. But I think that's like a really exciting and like just nice feeling. So I can only
Sure.
imagine like that's definitely like that's probably what's excelling you to like move forward in
Yeah,
school too.
it's kind of
You're like,
funny because you know how like they say there's no selfless good deeds, you know, because it's
yeah.
like kind of like I'm doing like I want to do like these good deeds for people and I want to help people, but it's also making me feel good.
No,
So it's
exactly. But I think it's like it should be like that.
yeah,
You should in a sense benefit from it in like in a happy perspective. Like,
yeah,
you know what I mean? Obviously you're not happy seeing people suffer, but you're happy helping those people and seeing like the changes they're gonna make in their
yeah,
lives to help live a better life, and to
yeah,
feel happier in their skin or whatever it may be. And like I think that's just so I understand and I could relate to what you're saying because like that's something, if I think of like my passion and it's like, I feel like that's something I would love to do,
for
inspiring
sure,
people
for
in
sure.
that way. So I completely get it. And like, I think that's super cool. And like, honestly, go for the PhD, like do
Thank
it.
you,
It's going to be worth it,
thank
in the
you.
long run of your life. Like, you're so young right now, yeah, it's going to be maybe another, how long does it take to get a PhD even?
Okay,
Like
so
5 years, 6 years? I don't even know.
I know it's like a long process because you have to start with your bachelor's.
Right.
So that's 3 years, and then you do your master's, which is 2 years, and then a PhD, which is I want to say 4 years or something like that.
Oh, whoa.
Yeah, but yeah, a lot
That's
of
so long.
I know. So, but or you can do a fast track to your PhD
Okay.
from your bachelor's, but it's still like 6 years. The only difference is you only have to write one thesis. Like those huge, like
Yeah, 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 yeah.
100-page things. But yeah, so like by no means is this an easy process, but like it's my passion and it's something I know I want to do. And not only is it not easy because it's going to take me a long time to get there, but like once I'm there, like yeah, I'm helping people and I'm like making myself feel good, but it's going to be also a very like huge emotional toll to like hear everybody's like heavy stories, like
Yeah.
so it's going to definitely be difficult in that sense too, but it's like a challenge that I'm like willing to put
I
forward,
think, yeah, I think it's worth like the sacrifices and all of that because it's like it's truly what you want to do. So at the end of the day, like don't let anything stop you. Just keep going for your goal. Like
Mhm.
that's how
Yeah,
I always think about it. And like I think that like you definitely have like the motivation, like just like the way
thank
you're
you.
talking about it, being passionate about it. So like good for you. Like you go and go do that.
Not only me, but like what you're doing with your podcast and everything, like that's amazing.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah,
You're so
I always
sweet.
I always thought about making a podcast or something because I always like was obviously I'm really intrigued with like mental health and body image and all that stuff. Um, but like I just never I don't know like I didn't have the guts to do it. So seeing you do it
You
is like
should do it.
really
Aw, you're
inspiring.
so sweet. But you should honestly do it because like you have like a really interesting like topic you could talk about if you want to do mental health and stuff like that. Like
Mhm.
definitely like there's a lot of things to talk about related to it. And like literally there's so many topics you could talk about related to
Yeah,
mental health. And you could
yeah.
definitely do something like that. And honestly,
Mhm.
you should because it's like it's a fun little like side project or whatever you want to call it. So like it is worth it.
Yeah,
So
it's a good creative outlet too.
exactly. And that's why it's fun. You get to talk to different people. So that's always nice.
And you're helping people too because like you're giving people an outlet to share their stories and express
This
like
is
what
true.
they're going through.
This
And
is
then
true.
and then the people that are listening, it's also helping them and inspiring them. So it's like
That is
everybody benefits.
there is a lot of benefits. That's what I hope in the production of this. So even if just like two people listen to it and like they feel like inspired by something, like that's all that matters. But like already like having started this project, it's a lot more people than I ever thought have already listened to it. So like
Yeah.
that's it kind of is exciting in that way.
I
But
already
yeah.
know once it's out, I'm gonna like post it everywhere
Oh,
so
you're
that
so
people can
sweet.
get it.
I'll definitely let you know.
Yeah.
So to talk a bit more then about like your story, your eating disorder story, connecting it. Oh, sorry.
My brother
Sorry.
just like
Oh,
he
it's
didn't know I was
okay.
doing this. You're welcome. So I'm sorry.
It's all good. I'll just continue from there. Don't worry.
Yeah.
So to talk a bit more about like your story and like your eating disorder story, because that's obviously you saw like your own side of it, but then also being in psych class, you saw like you're like, oh wow, like this could actually be like an interesting career, and like you were already in therapy also, so
Yeah.
like you saw like kind of both sides in a sense.
Mhm.
What like when I don't want to say when did it start, but how would you say like your eating disorder story started, or
Yeah.
the
So
recovery
I'll just like
started?
go from the beginning of like,
Yeah,
so like as a kid, I was always a little bit insecure because in my body because I was like my genetics like were all the women in my family are curvy and so I had curves from like a pretty young age and like no other girls I really could noticeably see had like my body shape. It was like I was like a child with like like curves, so I felt like uncomfortable in my skin and I shouldn't have, but I did. And so that kind of like progressed into high school. I went to an all girls school like for 5 years, so like you're surrounded with like girls and like what do? You probably compare yourself a lot too, so
I get that. I was definitely there. I was also in
yeah,
all girls school,
yeah,
so I
exactly.
completely get it.
Yeah, so I definitely did a lot of that, but then it was coming from a place of like my internal insecurities. So then it was like one Easter, I like had a lot of food at Easter like everyone does, and I was just something in my mind was like I need to lose weight. Like I don't look good, I don't feel good, and I just like wanted to lose weight. I was like this was like sec 4, I think. I think it was sec 4. So I was maybe 15 or something like that. And so like I started like using one of those calorie counting tracker apps, and I would like restrict my calories to a super low amount. I don't want to say like amounts or numbers or anything because I don't know if like it's going to trigger anyone.
Mhm.
But so like just not enough for like a growing teenage girl who's like
Right.
active and like so obviously a caloric deficit is going to be like result in short-term weight loss. Like your metabolism is going to slow down eventually and you're not going to be able to keep it off forever. But so I lost weight and I started to like gain my confidence and my happiness in that number on the scale. And it was it started this like toxic thing that I would weigh myself like so many times a day if I went to like a restaurant or like an outing with like friends, like people had their sweet 16s all of like sec 4, like I would be super stressed because there would be like all this food and I would want to like keep within my calorie limit. And obviously like this was like it was a very very toxic thing for me. I was so young and I was doing these things. I didn't know I had a problem, so this lasted for about a year and a half and or something like that until um the summer after sec 5. So after I graduated I was doing like this restrictive thing. I'm sorry if I'm like a little bit all over the place because
No, no, it's okay.
yeah. So yeah, and I didn't have my period. Another thing is I didn't have my period for like a long time because I was under eating and because I wasn't healthy. So that was a problem. So pretty much what happened the end of the summer after sec 5, the summer before starting CJEP, was I was given this like pill by my pediatric gynecologist, like this 10-day prescription pill that you would take every day, and then at the end of that you would get like it would like make you have a period, like a forced period. So like she
Okay.
thought that maybe that would be like a good solution, try to get my hormones back in balance and in check. And I got my period and then I started having a regular period, but like my body was adjusting to that. I had been restricting for so long, and like all I needed was food, and I wasn't fueling my body properly for so long, and that's when I started to like gain significant amount of weight very fast because I was eating more and I needed to eat this food, but I didn't know, like my brain wasn't there. My brain and my body were not matching up.
Mhm.
So I started to eat more food, but I was really, really like depressed about it. I was feeling so insecure in my body. My clothes started to feel tighter. Um, and Um, I was also in like a toxic relationship at the time, so had to deal with that on top of like all my insecurities that I was already having. Um, so that lasted for like the first half of my first year in CEGEP, so good 6 months. And then I just knew that I needed to get like some professional help, because I was doing it alone and I didn't know what to do. I forgot to mention that it was probably like within that first semester in CEGEP that I realized I had a problem. Like during that whole time I was restricting and like was at my smallest weight I had ever been. I like didn't realize I had a problem. I thought it was normal. Like I didn't realize that this was like actually super toxic, and I was like obsessed with my body image and food. I realized I had a problem in about October of that first semester. That was when like I had the breakup with that guy that I was with, and it was just like a spiraling down, you know. So I didn't know what to do with myself. We went like my mom brought me to the children's hospital, to like see what they would say, because I was under 18 at that point, and they referred me to a few psychologists that were doing cognitive behavioral therapy, which is pretty much like rewiring your brain to think differently, and like practicing like different trains of thought, because like my whole brain was wired to be like diet, 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 you know, and that's not an easy thing to undo. Like an eating
No,
disorder
for
is
sure.
super sticky. So then I started to see my therapist, and she told me, you know, start with just eating 3 meals, 3 snacks a day. Just start with that, nothing crazy. Um, and, you know, it was hard because I was doing that and I was gaining weight because my body needed to. But, you know, then I would also feel like this urge to restrict sometimes, and that starts a horrible cycle, because you're doing this like restricting, but then your body's just going to need food again, and you're going to binge, and then you're going to restrict, and then you're going to binge, and you're just always going to be back and forth, and it's never like you're never going to be happy like that. You're going to be like, you have to break that cycle. So that's what therapy helped me do. That was the first main thing I had to do, break that cycle of restricting and binging, and just starting to eat like normally throughout the day. I'm sorry if I'm like blabbing. It's a really long
No,
story.
no, no. No, 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 keep going. Like, this is, like, why we're here talking about your
Yeah.
story, and all that, so no, no, no.
Yeah, and I'm also trying to like remember everything because it's like been over the span of so many years. Um so yeah, I broke that cycle with the help of a therapist. I also eventually started seeing a nutritionist, and she kind of specialized like in intuitive eating. So like intuitive eating being like no specific diet, but all eating like in a way that makes me feel good, not focusing on weight, and focusing more on eating balanced meals, which is was a huge thing. And eating like filling things and filling up my body with good things. So I was eating and feeling good. And then I guess I didn't really talk about like my relationship with exercise during the time, because my eating disorder mostly revolved around food and like stuff like that. But there was some like exercise components to it, which I feel like a lot of people have when they have like any kind of disordered eating. But oh, I'm so like scatterbrained.
No, it's okay.
Yeah, so let's see where I was. Yeah, so the first thing was breaking that restrict binge cycle, and the second thing was getting used to like getting comfortable with my weight and number on the scale. So in therapy, like I would weigh myself there at the office, which is like kind of weird, you'd think. Like, why don't you want to just forget about that number? But like what it was to do was to actually like see this and realize that everything's okay. Like see the number on the scale increase and realize that my whole world wasn't shattering, you know?
Yeah.
So I can't thank my therapist enough because she helped me so much, and so did my nutritionist. And I kept seeing them for a while, and it's just like kind of an overtime thing that like an eating disorder takes a long time to heal from. Like still like you know, even through therapy, like, and through nutrition, like talking to my nutritionist, like I was still like had eating disorder thoughts, and I could still have them till this day, but it's like what I do with them that's different now, you know.
Exactly. Like, you know how to kinda catch them in their tracks
I
before you
yeah,
let it, like, spiral out, right?
Exactly. Like I couldn't imagine doing like any kind of restriction now. Like it's so far in my past, and like when it comes to like eating disorders, they're so sticky and hard to deal with, and like I really like strongly recommend anybody who's experiencing any kind of like this kind of like who can relate to what I'm saying, so like to get professional help if they can. If not, there's like so many like places to like online like call, like you can people that you could talk to, and there's always like counselors at school, and like there's always like group sessions that are like that don't cost money, you know. So like I was very lucky to be able to go see a therapist, but it's not everyone can do that, you know?
For sure, because obviously it is very costly. And but like you said, like, I feel like there are so many more resources these days that
Yeah,
make it more available to everybody. Like you said, online, there's like
yeah,
hotlines, there's all different types of resources. Even at school, I think like, being at Concordia, I believe there is like a psychology center there or a mental health center. I'm not sure what they call it, but to even get kind of to get help with like a professional, and it's part of your fees that you're paying.
yeah.
So, may as well utilize them if you need it. And like,
So
I
important.
completely agree that it's like super essential. Like, I myself have been to therapy before, not for the same exact reasons. I've had a lot of anxiety, but anxiety that's kind of like, in a sense, like crept up into a lot of different like domains, including like
Yeah,
eating as well. I've gone through my own thing with eating, kind of similar to yours in terms of dieting and really like focusing and then binging. And so I do kind of get that.
unfortunately, I feel like it's a super common thing,
It is.
especially for girls and women, like with social media and its influence, and like how exposed we are to like these idealized images of people
Exactly.
that are like obviously social media is just a facade, you know, it's not the reality. But like I feel
Exactly.
like almost every girl, it's really unfortunate, can relate to this to a certain extent. You know what I mean? Any
A
kind of
hundred
disorder,
percent.
you know?
Exactly. And like that's why like, actually our topic today is relating to that. So I think like, it's gonna
Yeah,
tie in like very well with that. But I completely agree though in general. Like it's so prevalent in everything we do, even beyond social media, just like the people we surround ourselves with, what they're doing when you go out for dinner and you see certain people like maybe avoiding to eat certain things or they
yeah,
make a note about it. And it's like these tiny little triggers that like end up making a big effect. And like actually recently a lot well, like a huge interest of mine is nutrition. And like I'm not in
amazing.
nutrition, I'm very much in marketing, like in a whole other different realm.
Yeah,
But like I've been taking a lot of time to learn about it and read about it and read about what dietitians work and working with people with eating disorders and stuff, because I do find it's something that's super interesting. And like it's something I would love, kind of like like you were saying with mental health, like I would love to help people, help with eating and learning how to eat intuitively, kind of like what you were just discussing, because it's when I was going through my like I don't even know what you want to call it, dieting
yeah, like
phase or
dieting phase,
whatever.
yeah,
Exactly, like I would not want to eat carbs. I would think that those were bad. I would think like all these negative thoughts with
yeah,
food. And then like when I started working out in the gym, over a year and a half ago, I started getting really into fitness and I was like, okay, well, I'm gonna need to eat. Like I'm not gonna be able to like grow muscle or
mm,
whatever if I don't eat. And that's when like it can my I don't know what happened, but like my relationship with food completely like changed.
that's
And like
amazing.
I'm not scared to eat anymore. Like it sounds so stupid saying that, but like
Yeah, I know. It's
you're like scared to eat,
crazy.
like you need to eat, but
You're
it's
thinking
like
about it too much. Like you shouldn't have food on your mind all day, you know? You should be able
exactly.
to be free with food. Like that's the thing. That's the thing you were talking about, how like people have these negative connotations with food, like this is good, this is bad. And like we shouldn't assign morality to food. Like food is
I
food.
agree.
You know, there's some foods that you should probably incorporate more, but it doesn't mean the other foods aren't shouldn't be incorporated at all. You know what I mean?
I completely agree. And it's
Yeah.
funny you're saying that though, because I was literally, I don't know what I was doing yesterday. And like, I was like, oh, I would love to make a TikTok about this and being like, oh, it's like, yeah, okay, maybe it's like not the best, but it's not bad. It's just food at the end of the day. Like, it's still edible as long as it's not going to kill you because it's poisonous. Like, it's still edible. It's just like, maybe just like don't eat as much as like eating like fruits and vegetables and like, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
And
of
more
course.
foods with
Yeah,
more
that's the thing.
nutrients, like,
It's all about balance, and like that's just the main thing, like balance, like throughout everything, like a varied diet, you know, where you
exactly.
feel like you can have everything and you just have freedom, you know. And that's
Exactly.
where I am today. Like I'm so thankful to be where I am. I have like even like if I have like a slight thought here and there about like, oh, like I don't know, I'm feeling really bloated or something like that, like where I am today is at a place where I'm super free with food. I'm confident in my body. Not only like feeling good about myself every time because I'll every day because that's not possible. Like everybody
No,
has this
100%.
experience,
Of course.
but it's like this type of like body neutrality, and what that is like you like look at yourself and you don't look at yourself and view like all your value and worth based on the way you're looking, you know? It's like you look at yourself and you feel like you can go about your day and you're not going to be thinking about food and your body all the time because you're neutral, you care about your body, you fuel your body, you know, you exercise in a way that makes you feel good and you enjoy. And like you were saying about exercise, like it used to might be something that was like for aesthetics or for like to get a certain physique, but like then it became something like I want to get strong, I want to get like I want to get stronger, I want to get like more muscles. And that's what that shift is. It's like you think about food and exercising in like this like way to get to a certain body, but then it switches to um like exercise becomes something that is for your mental health. It's to make you feel good mentally and physically. And food is the same thing, because food is not just to it is to give nutrients to your body and to fill your body with good things and with a varied diet. But it's also about making you happy, because food is like social situations, like we're out and we're eating with
You're eating
friends,
food.
family,
Exactly,
barbecues,
eating.
everything.
Exactly.
Like you want to go and you want to be free, and the last thing you want to think about is food. Like I can't tell you how many events that I could have been enjoying with my friends and like I had food or my body or some sort of insecurity on my mind. And it's just so crazy, like the life I lived then versus now. It's just such a huge difference, and I'm like so much happier on that scale.
No, I completely get it.
And
I
also from what you said
yeah, sorry,
before,
continue.
like I'm really happy that you got the therapy and the help that you needed for like your anxiety and everything like that. And like that's amazing. Like anybody who can, I really like strongly recommend that. I can't stress that enough. Like I know there's like a stigma about like seeking help or going on medications, but like everybody's different and everybody needs to be able to have that opportunity to find out what works best for them. You know what I mean?
Yeah. No, I completely agree, and, like, there really is nothing wrong, like, after having gone to it, it's like there's really nothing wrong, like, there's just, like it just benefits you more, like, you know what I mean? If anything, like, you're at an advantage, in my opinion, compared to others who, like, refuse to go, like, honestly, like, I don't think it's, like, means you're weak, I don't think it means anything, it's like, if you go see a doctor, why can't you go see, like, a
Yeah, like
psychologist then?
you
Like, there's
have
really, like, no difference.
yeah, if like you have a health problem, you're going to want to do what you can to make it better, you know? And it's the same thing with your mental health. You know, it's just as valid. Like a lot of people, say like what you a lot of people maybe not don't believe as much in like depression and anxiety and in these mental things because they're not visible, they're not
Yeah.
tangible. But like everybody's issues are valid, no matter what it is. And
Yeah, no, I completely agree.
yeah. So
I
like
completely agree.
I just hope that like, because I know there's a lot of people who don't see validity in what they're going through, and that's like the first step. Like it's crazy, but like once you like give yourself that self-compassion and tell yourself like, yes, this is hard, what I'm going through is difficult, and I need to do what I can to get better, like it's incredible,
No, I agree, and, like, it's just, like and you look back now and you're, like you're so proud of yourself and, like, and how you've gone to where you are today, like,
Hmm.
you're like, "Wow," like, I realize, I put my it was a struggle then, but now it's like I've come this far,
Yeah.
and, like, that's such a rewarding feeling for your own self, and I think that's, like, something to be so proud of because, like, some people are not able to overcome it even after going, through getting help and all of that. I've seen stories where it's like they fall back into that and it ends up being worse the next time. And you should be so proud that you're able to, like if you see like you catch a thought, you're like, okay, no, like it's okay, like I'm fine. You know what I
Yeah,
mean? You're able to
exactly.
really help yourself now, and you
Yeah,
wanted to help yourself,
for
which I think is
sure.
even so much better.
Hmm. And
Like
it's hard to rewire your brain,
100%. I mean, it's not it's a very complex organ from whatever I have learned from it, it's definitely not a very, like, easy thing to understand, the brain is super complicated, and so stuff like that, you literally are reprogramming your brain to, like, believe something else,
Yeah.
it's like you wanna have these different belief patterns, and it's even with anxiety, for example, like, your brain is wired to, like, be I don't want to say stressed, but like to almost be like worried something's going to happen all the time, like something negative
course.
is going to
Of
happen,
course.
right?
It's
And like
literally a part of our biology,
exactly, and so with when you have like actual like anxiety, you're always just like like concerned, like, oh my god, if I do this, like what if this happens and what if that happens, and like you end up catching those patterns. And like part of like when I went to therapy, she was trying to teach me about like catching those patterns, like, okay, when you
Yeah.
say what if, like think about like what is going to happen actually
Yeah.
if those things do happen, like rationally, because
Yeah.
when you're stressing out and you have anxiety, like you're not thinking rationally anymore.
Mm-mm.
And I feel like a lot of the different types of mental health disorders, or however you want to put them, in some ways you're like not thinking, not that you're not thinking rationally, I guess they're each kind of different, so maybe I won't say that, I take that back. But at least with
I know
anxiety
what you mean,
anyways,
though,
you're just
yeah.
not thinking rationally
Of
anymore.
course. It's like or even if there is an element of truth in the anxiety,
Hmm.
and then it just gets blown into this huge thing. Because I've like
Yes.
suffered from like the thing with the eating disorders is that they start as eating disorders, but they're like a mix between like eating bad, like a disordered eating, a depression and anxiety, like all like in this nice little sundae,
Yeah, because it ends
So
up touching upon many different aspects,
exactly,
right?
it
That's
affects
why
your
I
life.
feel like a lot
Yeah,
of them overlap, because like, one thing might be kind of like triggering into something else as well, which is why and it stems from different
100%.
components. So, they kind of all relate in some ways.
Yeah, and like you were saying, like what you did in therapy was very similar to what I did. It was like a lot of what I did was thought challenging, we called it. So like if
Yeah.
I would have like an intense like anxiety or thought that was very negative, I would write it down, the thought that I was having, and then I would write the evidence that I had for that thought,
Oh
like
my God, I
prove
literally
that
done the
thought.
same thing.
Yeah. And then I
Yeah.
had evidence against that thought. And there was like oftentimes there was a lot more like tangible evidence against the thought. Like for example, like I was saying, like, oh my god, like I'm gonna keep gaining weight forever, and like I'm like I hate myself, like I'm disgusting or something like very negative. And like what evidence like
What
for
evidence
that,
is actually proving that? Exactly.
yeah, and what evidence against everything, like like everybody's body's different, everybody's body has like a set weight that is they're supposed to be at, like, and as long as you're taking care of your body the way you should, then you don't have to worry about those things. And then the last part of that exercise would be to like rewrite the thought in like a way that, like, once you do the evidence thing, you can rewrite that thought, and then
Yeah, and it's like actually like the rational thought.
you
Yeah,
rewire that.
exactly.
And then I did that so many times, like written down, that it became like almost natural. Like it was like just in my head, like if that came up, I'm like able to say, no, this is the truth.
For sure. Yeah, and like I get that, like obviously not with the same topics, but with a similar kind of like rewiring of like, and then you're able to catch it. It's like ends up being subconscious later on. You're like, okay, like really like this is not the end of the world, and like you're able to like calm yourself down just because of catching that kind of thought pattern.
Yeah.
So we're going to move on to our topic of the day now, which we kind of already like sort of touched
Yeah.
on. But in terms of social media, eating disorders, mental health, all those three combined into one, that's
Yeah.
very much talked about on social media. You know what I mean? Like I feel like you often see things, and like you end up getting dragged into these different types of thoughts because of stuff you see on social media. Like for me, there's times where I have to like actually like almost delete my social media, and not because like I'm thinking so badly about myself, but just because I just don't want to see it
Yeah.
anymore.
It's
I'm just
like,
like,
that it's negatively affecting you. Like, even if it's at like a subconscious level, like you just don't want to have to
you just
see
like
it.
you're ugh,
Yeah.
yeah, exactly. You know what I mean? It's like you obviously know, like the thing is consciously we all know that social media is there to promote like the best part of our lives. You know what I mean? Like
Of
when I'm
course.
posting stuff, it's because like I'm doing something that's fun. Even if I'm at home, like I'm doing something cool or something looks fun. And like realistically, like if I'm just sitting on my TikTok scrolling, I'm not posting about that. Like that doesn't make sense. You know what I mean?
Yeah, of
So like
course. So there's like yeah, there's so much. There's like you look at people's lives and you get like, oh, why don't I have like a fun life like that? But then you also look at people's like pictures of themselves and like bodies, and you know, and then you think about it, and then you're like, okay, so first there's like a cute outfit that was put on, really nice makeup was put on, hair was done, jewelry, accessories, everything. And then you go and you find the lighting, and then you do your poses that flatter your body to look a certain way, and then you edit the picture and you choose only one picture out of the hundreds that you took,
Yeah.
and then
That's
that's
yeah.
what's being put out there, you know? So there's so many layers. Like,
And there's nothing wrong with that. Like, you know what I mean? We all do it. Like our society, like that's just
of
what we're like
course, we just
accustomed
have to be
to.
aware so that like
Exactly.
we know we know that what we're looking at is not necessarily the entire story, so it shouldn't make us feel so bad about ourselves, you know?
I completely agree. I completely agree. Would you say though that social media was like a trigger for you in like your dieting experiences and all of
Yeah.
that? Like would you say that was, being on social media was like a trigger or like you didn't really think of it that way?
I didn't think of it that way at first because I just wasn't aware. I was very young and I was seeing things on Instagram and I was like, I would like always compare myself to girls on Instagram, and um that was obviously very toxic, and especially the influencers you follow, that's a big thing too, because you want to follow people you admire, so the people I was admiring were people that were not necessarily the best, for me specifically. And the one thing that I did in therapy was my therapist told me, it's best to look through who you follow and really see like what's making me happy, what's not making me happy. So I like cleared out all like those influencers or like the supermodels, all of those people that were making me feel worse about myself and I was comparing myself to. And I'd started to follow a lot more accounts that were making me feel empowered. So it was a lot of body positivity accounts. That's how it started. I got into like body positivity.
Okay.
And so a lot of body positivity counts, a lot of more curvier women who just had more of my body type, So I felt like I can relate to people that I was seeing on social media. So that was a huge thing that made me feel a lot better. And it didn't just go away because I still had people at school I'd compare myself and whatever. But it's crazy how much like we're looking at it on social media is like really powerful.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah, and that's why I like last summer I had this account called Curvy Girly, if you remember it.
I don't know. Now that I think about it off the top of my head, I really don't
Yeah,
know.
but it was just like this body positivity account. I don't have it anymore. I would post things like my knowledge about like, I would tell people like I would post like a all natural picture, just like a random one that like was something that I would like to have deleted, and I'd be like, this is like, part of the truth too. This is like the other side of the story.
Yeah,
This is me that I'm in like a pose that is not necessarily making me look like the ideal body image view. So that was I hope that helped people. A lot of people messaged me and said like I had a similar experience. I came out with my like eating disorder, like I explained a small like as much as I could on like an Instagram caption.
yeah.
And a lot of people said they had similar experiences to me, and just having like people to talk to and like showing that okay, like I made someone feel comfortable with saying something to me, that's personal. And that was really special. And eventually I just kind of lost inspiration with the account, kind of like how you were saying, like keeping motivation is hard. So like I kind of like got wrapped up in other things in my life, and like university and like a new relationship and all that. And then I kind of I wasn't as inspired with it anymore because it was like kind of more of a part of my past, because I kind of leaned off of body positivity now, and I'm just kind of like at this point where I don't focus on my body at all, because you could
Okay.
argue that like body positivity is just is still focusing on your body maybe too much.
Yeah, exactly. Then you're trying to be like you're almost in a sense like overcompensating, like
Yeah,
because you're like, and I think that's great. You should be obviously body positivity is like
of
super
course,
important,
it's
but
very
it
important.
doesn't. In some ways, I kind of get what you're saying. You don't need to make it so like a point in a way.
Yes.
Like I kind of get what you're saying, because then you're still thinking about your body.
Yeah,
Whereas
so
you
the
just kind of want to like
yeah.
leave it alone in a sense. You don't want to think about it anymore.
Yeah, goes from being like body negativity and like very insecure to being body positivity, which is very a good step in the right direction, and it's a
For
step
sure.
I needed to take. But it's still like a very body focused, and now I'm just kind of like, my body is what my body is. I'm gonna do the things that make me feel good internally, and that's what it is, my
Yeah,
body.
no, and I think that's great. I think that's a good mentality to have with it, and I completely agree, with what you're saying. You don't wanna you just wanna live life, and you don't wanna have to always be thinking whether it be positive or negative, obviously, hopefully not negative, more positive than anything, but,
Yeah,
you just wanna be living in more of neutral in terms of that, in a
yeah,
sense,
that's what I was
and
talking about, like body neutrality.
exactly, and I think that's really good. I think that's super important, and that kind of leads into, like, what I was gonna, like, mention
Mhm.
next was more like, do you find that the pandemic has really affected and making people more obsessive with what they're looking like
Oh
in
my
terms of social
gosh.
media?
I was literally just had that thought on my mind, like I wanted to mention that because okay, so yeah, and I feel like also TikTok has really grown too, and like everybody's
For
on it.
sure, yeah.
Personally, I'm not on it. I was on it many last year, but not anymore. A lot of it's like I heard of a lot of like plus size women making TikToks and them getting deleted. So like what you end up seeing is like a lot of like the idealized bodies, and that's why that's like one thing that really became super popular during the pandemic, the TikTok. And so I feel like a lot of people were exposed to a lot of that. There's also so many TikToks about like, oh, like how I got my arms to look this like skinny and whatever like that, like just a lot of kind of toxic things that I don't
Yeah,
really love. um so there's that. So I think that's definitely affected people. Then just being inside, your lifestyle completely changing. Like you used to go walk around, like you're going to school, you're going to work, like you're walking around. Now you get up and you go to the kitchen and you go
yeah,
to the bathroom and you're walking like a few steps. So like your lifestyle has changed completely. So of course your body's going to change by consequence. Like that's just what's going to happen. And I think that's why everybody has experienced some sort of body change within the pandemic, some sort of fluctuation. And that's like a huge, huge thing, a huge point that I want to make is that like depending on what your life experience is at that current moment, your body will be different,
yeah.
you
For
know?
sure, and, like, just in general, you know what I mean? Like, even putting the pandemic aside, like, naturally, as a woman anyways, as you go through puberty, as, like, you get older, like, your bodies do change. When you have a
Exactly.
kid one day, your body's gonna change, like, you know what I mean? So, like, all these things are bound to happen, and then, the pandemic, yes, was maybe, like, not a thing that was planned, so it was kind of like, it's a surprise in a sense,
Mhm.
where a lot of things could have happened and, maybe would have had an effect on some people, but, it shouldn't be something that, like, that you need to think so negatively upon as well, because it's not like just that, it's not just you know what I mean? Like
Yeah,
we're living through a really crazy period where like crazy things have been happening. So, if you gained a few pounds, like it's not a big deal, you know what I
yeah,
mean? Like, and it's something that like you can easily feel better about, over time. You start being more active again once life resumes, to, walk, even just walking, because we don't walk as much,
yeah,
right? Like you have to like actively like make a choice to go outside and walk now, because otherwise you're not walking, basically,
yeah,
being like everything remote, right?
exactly.
So
Yeah,
like once like life resumes, like these kinds of like, those that feeling you have of like, oh, like why am I not moving, like is gonna naturally change, because like
yeah.
you're
Your body's
realistically
gonna
gonna
change again when
exactly.
life goes back to a more normal condition.
Exactly, because you'll just be, you'll walk to school, you'll walk here, you'll walk there, and like that, those kinds of changes will just go, you'll go back to normal, and you won't feel
Yeah,
so like stressed. And I think there shouldn't be so much stress
of
associated with
course.
it.
And it's not by force that you're changing your body. It's just like, okay, your body's like, okay, I'm moving more. Like, I'm
Exactly. It's just
gonna
because we become
do
so
this.
sedentary because of the pandemic.
Yeah, and like especially like this is a hard time we're going through. And I know it's like great. It's very good that like if people can have a chance to stay active, it's very good. I support like activity in a way that you love and enjoy. Don't force yourself to work out if you really hate working out, like lifting weights. If you love going on walks or if you love dancing, like do that.
I completely agree.
Yeah, like you never, because then it becomes like, okay, I'm not moving in a way I enjoy, then like, it's not worth it. It's not as worth it. So I feel like we're going through such a difficult time, and we've been through something we've never been through before. The most important thing is taking care of yourself. So the weight gain or whatever, it's not the most important thing by any means. It's really like the most important thing is you focus on yourself and your mental health, because I don't I think the people's mental health has really, you know, on average declined a lot in the
Oh,
pandemic.
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah, like even from personal experience, I can personally say like yes, like I
Me
definitely
too.
feel different, you know what I mean? And like not in a positive way, like it's definitely had an effect on me in like many different like aspects in a sense, and like hopefully as things are opening now, it almost makes me feel weird being out. Like yesterday night, there was no more curfew and like I
Yeah,
felt very odd being out. Like it was
I
almost
was
like I didn't like it.
yeah. I was still in bed by like 10 o'clock sleeping, but I
Uh
didn't take advantage of the curfew at all. But it's just nice to know that I can, be out,
you could, yeah.
you know?
It's definitely nice. No, it's definitely nice, but it's just like it almost feels odd where it's like I don't know how I feel about it.
No,
Like there's
it's
just
a
like so
lot to
much
get used to.
transition,
Yeah,
you know? So it's just like it's an adjustment period in every step of this pandemic, and it's gonna come with its like positive and negative consequences. And it's just
yeah,
something, we need to continue like moving forward, and hopefully at some point we'll all be like in equilibrium again.
of course. I think a lot of people had a lot of anxiety and depression throughout the pandemic, whether, it's body related things or it's just like, some people really need to be surrounded by a lot of people. If they're like very extroverted people, you feed off of that. And that's hard, and just like, especially like the way it's been here in Montreal is that like we've technically like haven't been able to see like any of our loved ones and significant others until now from like October. Like we
Yeah.
didn't want any gatherings. So it's
Yeah.
insane. Imagine not being able to see your closest people in your life.
Yeah. No, it's hard. I completely get it. I very
Yeah.
much get it. Yeah. So, like at least it's nice that now we have that, it could help with our mental health. And like, but then there's also like, if you want to lead it back to social media, everyone's just gonna be posting like their highlights of like all the great things that are going on now, which
Yeah.
of course is a good thing, to share some positive
Yeah.
things because it's been so like sad. But like, you know,
Yeah.
there's just everyone just needs to take things in with a grain of salt when it comes to social media. As much as it's
That's what I was gonna say.
important, it just it just doesn't matter at the same time, if that makes
Yeah,
any sort
like
of sense.
social media is there and it's, you're gonna see things, you're gonna whatever, but it's just that's why I said like it's just important to know in your mind that it's not the whole story. It's a nice picture or whatever. It doesn't mean that person is always happy all the time, like for me, like I've recovered from an eating disorder and it's made me grow a lot stronger, like I've gone through, breakups and a lot of like anxiety and stuff like that, but like I've like recovered from a lot of it, but it's by no means perfect. And like even if I post like I tell you that I'm so much better now, like I recovered and I'm great, it's not the full truth either because like right now, like I'm going through something very hard, for example, and it's like that's what life is. Like there's gonna be struggles no matter what, and everybody
Exactly.
faces them. That's how it is. And that's why I feel like social media is a bit tricky because you as we are like as humans we just like look at a picture and believe it 100% we believe what we see, but
Yeah.
we just have to have that reminder, that mental reminder.
Yeah. No, I completely agree. I think that's a very fair point to bring up. To kind of summarize today and to kind of like close off today's conversation, what would you give like in terms of like a healthy tip in terms of like, promoting your own mental health or to helping your own self? Like what's one tip you would give someone who may be in a similar situation as you?
Okay. I would definitely like say, like I said before, if you can get help, like please do so if you have that opportunity. There's always other ways if you don't have like the financial means to. That's number one. But you also it's not just about relying on like a therapist or your friends because to a certain extent you need to have your own self. You have to be able to say like, I have my strong support group, but at the end of the day, when I'm like alone in bed and I'm feeling sad, like I have myself, you know?
Yeah.
And so, and that means like taking care of yourself, taking care of your body, journaling, doing these things that are going to make you feel better, whether that's reading, finding hobbies that are fulfilling, whether exercising and, in a way that makes you feel happy. I don't even like using the word exercising. I just like movement, just like move in a way that you enjoy.
Yeah.
And, like little by little, like the thing I always keep in mind when I'm going through something hard is that like this too shall pass, like it will pass. It's not forever that you're going to feel this way. Things will get better. That's how life is. It's up and down throughout life over time, and you have to keep that in mind. And You can always message me if you want to talk to someone.
Yeah, no, for
Um,
sure. Actually, at the end, I was gonna have you like give all like your like Instagram or
okay,
whatever it may be. So like if people do want to get in touch with you, like where they can find you and stuff. So
yeah, for sure. I'm doing a little bit of a social media cleanse right now because like it's kind
okay,
of funny that I'm doing that, but we like talked about it. So um, I'm trying to like just kind of work on myself and focus on myself right now. But I would love for people to reach out to me. My Instagram is probably the best place because I'm not a huge Facebook user or Snapchat user. So Angeliki Trif, ANGELIKITRIF. So that's
perfect. So if
that.
people have questions, they can come and reach out to you and like ask
Yeah,
you, or just even to
for
talk and just to like
for
share
sure.
their stories, and like I think that's something nice too when you talk to someone who's been in a similar situation to you, like that they're understanding what you're going through. So I think that's always like super nice to know
Yeah,
that. So definitely, reach out to her. She definitely knows a lot on the topic and she's super sweet and super like bubbly. Like I honestly like even prior to this conversation, like I mean, I've known Angeliki for like a while now. Like I think we were like
yeah,
kids. We would like play on the
yeah.
streets together. Like we were
Since
kind
like
of neighbors.
elementary school, we live
Yeah.
on the same street,
We
so
do live, yeah, yeah, exactly. We live on the same street, just like not next to each other. Anyways, but yeah. So, it's just
yeah,
like we've always seen each other kind of grow up too. And like, obviously
yeah.
you're a very intelligent young lady. And like I know you're gonna go very far in terms of like working in psychology and
You
helping
too.
others.
Thank you.
Oh, thank you.
I'm so
So
glad you had me today. Like, I'm really happy we did this. It made
no,
me
I'm really
feel like,
honestly, me too. I'm really happy. I'm really happy you came on and shared your story. Actually, you're like the first person to share like their story about like something like, like a struggle they've gone through. And like I really love that like you decided to want to share yours with me. And like I think that's really amazing. And I think more people should share their stories because like, you're not alone. There's so many people that go through so many similar things, if not the same, so it's kind of
yeah,
just a reminder that like we're all just people who have things going on. We're all just and like you know what I mean? Like it sounds so stupid saying that, but like we all just like each person has their own situation and like you never really know
everybody's
what
human.
anyone's going through.
Yeah, everybody's human. Everybody is going to have hard times come their way, and
Hmm.
everybody's like at the end of the day, we should all just be try to support each other.
Yeah.
Like you have, and like you're never alone. Like you're really never alone. Like even if you feel very alone, there's always someone else going through something like that. Something very similar.
100%. No, I totally agree. You know what I mean? Like there's everyone has, whatever it is. And it's just like it's nice to hear other people's stories. So thank you so much for sharing yours today. It really means a lot that you like came
Having me.
on and told me your story. I actually never knew that like that you had an eating disorder. I really didn't know that. And like I've known you for like a while. So like, thank
Yeah,
you for like opening up about that and sharing it with like, even others who are gonna listen to this episode too. So thank you for that.
no problem. I've always like I really wanted to like express my story to people to help people, and that's why I had that Instagram account a long time ago. I don't have it anymore, but I just feel like Instagram captions like it wasn't enough for me. Like I'm a
You want to
long
like
form
get
speaker.
someone, yeah. No, I get it.
Yeah,
Like getting it out like in a voice form or like in a like video form, it's like it's a different kind of thing. So I completely get that. It is different for sure.
well,
So
thank you so much. I had so much fun
anytime.
talking to you. Yeah.
Anytime, anytime. So for those who want to follow me, you can follow me at the Faces of Tomorrow pod on Instagram as well as on TikTok. And you can watch this either in video or in audio form on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or YouTube. And yeah, that's essentially all my platforms. Actually, even Facebook, there's the Faces of Tomorrow podcast. And obviously, if you want to just check my personal account out, it's at Tiff Astley. So feel free to check all those out and learn more about this episode and all the other ones. So have a great one. We'll be back next week with a new episode.